Hi everyone, voter suppression here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for a review of the new 1975 album, A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships. This is the latest full-length album from UK pop outfit, the 1975, their third record to date, and this thing has quickly become the band's most critically acclaimed release so far, garnering high praise from across the music publication spectrum, and it seems to be winning over a lot of fans too, and I can see why. This thing is easily the band's most mature and versatile record yet, as they try their hands at a myriad of different styles outside of their usual guitar-driven pop anthem comfort zone. The production on this thing generally is smooth, it's pristine, but still pretty lively. I do like the aesthetic of this record a lot. I mean, it just sounds pretty. During its best moments, the music on this thing radiates this feeling of pure bliss and euphoria. And even though it might seem pretty obvious what this record is about given its name, I still do give the 1975 credit for making this album slightly more conceptual than their last two. I generally think the track list of this thing flows pretty well for an entire hour of music. It certainly doesn't feel that long. Or it feels like the band are always presenting something new, so the record continues to stay engaging and dynamic. I can't say I'm coming away from this album as impressed as some people are, though. And it's not that I don't admire what the 1975 are shooting for on this album. I do, but some of it is just either half-baked or ill-conceived. Typically when this record works for me, the band are playing it pretty straight, like on the single Love It If We Made It, which was a teaser track I enjoyed upon first listen, and it's only grown on me in the context of the record. I love the tense and sweet instrumental on this thing, building up against some really passionate vocals. The lyrics essentially about society's unresolved problems, or even worsened problems, as we have transitioned into this modern age. And even though the track takes really long to resolve into the first hook, when it eventually gives the listener the payoff, it is amazing. It's rare that you see such a mainstream pop act out there willing to tell the audience, no, you have to wait for the payoff just a little bit. But believe me, when the band eventually does let go into this gargantuan, shimmering 80s-esque chorus, it's great. I also like the band's attempt at a pop and R&B blend on Sincerity is Scary. The loving, cascading, but kind of messy horns, the skipping beat, the intimate vocals, it's all pretty endearing. And it gets even better as the band introduces these huge, panoramic chorus vocals, which honestly really lights the song up. Why can't we be friends when we are lovers? Easily one of my favorite tracks the band has done so far. The 1980s, and specifically pop rock and synth pop, continue to be a huge influence deeper into the record, like on the song, It's Not Living If It's Not With You, a track that probably would have ruled the radio had it been released decades ago. The slick guitar licks and high gloss finish and orgasmic chorus on the song are wonderful. I also love the sentiment of the song too. Even though it's probably been said 1,000 times over, I do like the idea of just life and the world being a miserable place without this person who you have in mind. I also love the slow burning and dramatic buildup of the track Inside Your Mind. The track feels like staring at a bunch of old Polaroids and crying when you're overcome with nostalgia, or, I don't know, running across the beach like in slow motion with a sunset in the background and a wide angle shot, looking real cinematic. Also, the strings and wailing guitar lead on this cut are pretty iconic too. I Couldn't Be More in Love is another pretty ballad on the album, seems like an old school contemporary R&B throwback from the 80s, again just based on the synth timbre alone, just based on the synth patch alone, and the closer I Always Want to Die Sometimes is a strong finish for the record, though stylistically this song comes from like more of a 90s alternative rock slash Brit-pop place with a splash of shoegaze influence coming out of the production. Feels almost like something that could have come off of Radiohead's first album or whatever. Songwriting-wise, anyway, I do think the pillowy, fresh, and ultra-clean sound of this record is something specific to the 1975, even as they embark upon a lot of these old-school sounds. And there are a lot of great moments on this LP that come from referencing back, for sure. When things on this album go awry is really when they are, I guess, going contemporary or a little left field, like the band's attempt at a jazz number on the song Mine, which essentially sounds like a combination of the blandest, most forgettable elevator jazz you've ever heard with some really middling, forgettable mainstream pop songwriting. It's pleasant while it's on, but not nearly as engaging as a lot of what's here. Then there's the ridiculous spoken word passage, "The Man Who Married a Robot," and while I appreciate conceptually what the band are trying to do here, how this song adds to the themes, the major themes of this record, it still does not change that this thing reads like, I don't know, a lost chunk of a script from Spike Jonze's Her, fused with a bad 4chan copy pasta. The track overall is much more annoying than I think the band intended it to be. There are some other tracks here that would otherwise be okay if not for the obnoxious auto-tune laid onto them. The song I Like America and America Likes Me comes to mind. It's easily the most grating cut on this entire record. Or the single Two Time, which at first listen, weeks and weeks ago, I did not like. Maybe it's grown on me a smidge since then, but I still do not care for it. It mostly sounds like an upper crust appropriation of several different cooler music styles that have been blended to the point where it's hard to tell where one starts and another one ends. And for whatever reason, the song Be My Mistake reads like what would happen if you forced Ed Sheeran and Perfume Genius to write a song together, but it simultaneously scratches neither itch that both of those artists kind of serve. And the track How to Draw, along with everything that develops after it, is one of the most perplexing spots on the entire record. The cut moves through numerous phases, this extended, somewhat pretty ambient-ish intro. An electronic instrumental suddenly pops up that sounds like a ripoff of a Postal Service beat. There's like an ominous electronic breakbeat passage that it shifts into at some point suddenly. At one point, the track actually develops into an actual song with lead vocals, but the vocals are pitch shifted downward into this deep, whiny timbre that's nearly unlistenable. I can appreciate the band wanting to change things up a little bit structurally and experiment and do something different, but every idea the group shifts into on this song is just worse than the one before it. The song Give Yourself a Try is another moment where I do enjoy the social commentary coming out of the lyrics. I also think the super simple and minimal electronic beat is pretty compelling, along with the lead vocal melody. However, the squawking and somewhat overdriven and highly mixed lead guitar is not something I would have made as prominent on a majority of the track. It makes the song sound more one-dimensional than it actually is. All in all, though, I mostly liked this record a lot. Quite a few improvements on the band's last LP. I did like thematically what they were going for, even if many of the risks they took here didn't quite pan out. I guess I could also say this thing paves the way for more promise than their last record did. And once again, I could see this album appealing to a lot of people that are very much not me, but I think in order for that to be the case, the rougher, more ill-conceived spots on this thing would need to resonate with you much more deeply than they did with me. I'm feeling a decent to a strong 6 on this LP. Transition, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, the 1975, A Brief Inquiry, Forever.